Hello, everyone. So Corey's going to be joining us in a couple minutes. He said he had something come up, but he'll be here soon. So a little bit of a clickbait title temporarily for the time being, but he will join us soon. So I will man the Q&A for a sec here, and then Corey's going to be joining us, and we'll get to it. Glad to see some of you guys in here. A little Saturday night grind action. I might as well get the Instagram going too. Cool. And then see, I'm gonna get an Instagram. Oh, let's go, baby. Yes, sir. Again, yes, sir. All right, my guy's in here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we had an alarm going off of one of our rental properties, so I was just on the phone with like the security company.
Got you. I won't hold it against you, fam. Cool. Okay, so good to see everyone in here. Got the Hydro flashed up. Got some questions. Ready? Yo, afternoon. Good afternoon from California. Always excited to see you on. Appreciate it. 2 p.m. here in SoCal. Do you run a test on a suppressed buy box? Yeah. I mean, if you're like, a lot of beginners are like not kind of afraid of listings without a buy box, but it's totally a good opportunity.
Yeah.
All big websites work for ungating. Yes. Cool. Sweet. So Corey, for people who might not be familiar with you want to kind of fill the people in on what you got going on and such?
Yeah, guys. So my name's Corey Ganim. For those of you that are unfamiliar with me, I started with selling used books. I transitioned into online arbitrage, and over the last 5 years, I've been doing wholesale. And I've got a 7-day live training coming up starting this coming week on Monday. So if any of you guys are interested in checking that out, I know Miles has, I think, a link in the description of this video, where if you want to join us for that training, you can get a discount. It's pretty much going to be teaching you guys the A to Z of wholesale starting on Monday. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Yeah. And then so there's if anyone is interested in that, there's a link for that below, and there's $100 off coupon for you guys here too. And while we have the man Corey here on stream, all right, if you guys got any wholesale questions, please feel free to ask. Was on Corey's interview with Steve Rakin. Yes, sir. Okay. Corey, you give yours and I'll give mine. What is the best 3 pieces of advice you give to a new seller that you wish someone had told you before you started your journey?
That's a good question. So the first thing would be expect things to take longer than basically what you're expecting. So I thought I was going to sell $1 million in year one. It took a little longer than that. So just have a longer time horizon. Number 2, if you're doing wholesale specifically, be sure to follow up relentlessly. And then number 3 would be start to build your network within the community from day one. If I would have done that from day one, I'd be 10 times farther ahead than I am now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to go. The biggest thing is going to be your success is going to be determined by the Amazon sellers that hear your voice on a day-to-day basis, right? Which for most people is no.
So true.
Right? That all the myths, all the lies, propaganda, myths against FBM, right? You got to stay strong and you got to print the cash with the FBM, right? Which I definitely did. And I feel like I did a pretty good job networking and such too. And everything. And then also for sure, another component of it is going to be the like benefits of business credit. I feel like if utilized correctly, like totally like add gas to the fire, because there's a lot of like people who are afraid of that, rightfully so. I kind of get why and everything, right. But like that, like how important a thing that's been, you know, especially as young guys, low responsibility, heavy upside to just get into it and such.
Completely agree. Somebody said, how do I do wholesale and find products that will sell? So I've got a ton of free resources on my YouTube that'll teach you the A to Z of wholesale. And if you want to join us for that live training next week, like I said, the wholesale challenge, that'll help you with that a good bit as well.
But yeah, so just like kind of super tactical, right? For people who maybe even are just considering getting into, what are the first couple steps to getting those first couple accounts open?
So choose a category, right? Or ideally choose a subcategory. You want to go niche, and then look up 20, 30, even 50 or so distributors in that subcategory and start calling them up, right? Have a list of products and brands that you want to buy. Reference those when you're talking to the supplier. Ask for quotes. They'll give you quotes. When you find profitable inventory that way, then you buy it and you send it into Amazon. That's by far the quickest and easiest way to get into it.
Cool. If I can't make the live training, will it be recorded? Absolutely. So you'll have a lifetime access to all that stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah. So guys, if you do end up joining us for the wholesale challenge next week, but you can't make the live sessions for whatever reason, you still get lifetime access to the recordings of all the live sessions, all the guest interviews, pretty much everything the whole week. So you'll always have that. What are the softwares you use that you would definitely recommend for wholesale sellers? So as far as like software for wholesale versus software for OA, there's not a whole lot of difference. Still, the two most important softwares you can have by far are going to be Keepa and Seller Amp. And then third, something like Seller Board to kind of know your profit on a rough level. And then a good repricer as well, right? So on the new, if you're a newer seller, a good repricer would be something like Be Cool or Aura. And then as you start to level up and you're selling more, I'd say at least about 50K a month, then it makes sense to switch to a Seller Snap for a repricer.
Cool. Where can I find the suppliers once I find the product? So I actually like the way you're thinking in terms of finding the products first. Yeah, right. That's the way to do it as a beginner. But if you're doing OA, you're going to Google those products and try to find what websites carry them. If you're doing wholesale, you're going to call that brand and figure out their distributor list, or Google that brand and try to figure out distributors for them. So it's like you got to just dissect the supply chain of that product essentially.
Yep.
No. Automated account. Stay away. Come on, Socrates. You're a famous philosopher. You can't be falling for Amazon automation shit, man. No. Definitely not.
Yeah, no.
Wholesale. Is that the same one where you avoid reseller taxes? No. If you're doing wholesale, yeah, do that. Can't wait for the wholesale challenge Monday. Yes, sir.
Nice.
Or is it always going to be a rough estimate? Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. Like Amazon fees change. There's certain fees you might not know about and such and everything. But Seller's going to give you a really good estimate of that. To close and start new, and I just reapply. Dude, SFK, man, you've been asking these ungate questions since I think like June or something, man. Yes, you just reapply.
So somebody said, what's a typical net profit percentage on a wholesale product one should aim for to be profitable long term? So you're going to hear me talk more about gross profit than net profit. And the reason for that is every seller is going to have a different level of operating expenses. So gross profit's going to be more like apples to apples. So you're typically going to shoot for 10 to 20% gross margin on products that you're buying for wholesale. It can definitely be higher than that for certain products, but that's kind of a rule of thumb. And then for ROI, when it comes to wholesale, between 20 and 30% on average is what you can expect.
Boom. Makes sense. And then the cool part with OA is it should be a little bit higher, assuming you're doing things correctly, right? In terms of like ROI, you can even be some 30, 40, 50%, or 30 being standard, but like 40, 50%, et cetera from time to time too. I need to find a new manager provider. Not sure what you mean. Where's the best places to make connections with other Amazon? Wherever you like consuming content around Amazon. So if that's Reddit, do Reddit. If that's Twitter, do Twitter. If that's Instagram, do Instagram, right? Wherever TikTok, do TikTok. It's wherever people are hanging out where you're already consuming content. Because if you're consuming content somewhere, you'll probably have the most fun, have the most affinity, and know what will work there the most, right? My favorite place is for sure Twitter.
Somebody said, what's a good amount to invest early versus not a good amount to invest? So let's talk about like capital requirements for wholesale versus OA. And I'll talk to wholesale, and Miles, you can speak to OA. So guys, when it comes to wholesale, you're typically going to want to have anywhere from like 5 to 10K in cash for inventory to invest. And obviously you're not going to invest all that in one product, and you're definitely not going to invest all that at one time. But the idea is that's a good place to kind of start out and then be able to snowball your cash over time. What about OA, Miles? What's like a typical starting capital you'd recommend?
You got it. You pretty much just got to start with whatever you got, right? Because if the less money you have, the more you need to start a business, right? And such and everything. So like ideal for OA is going to be like 1 to 3K though. You see that golden hour hitting, boy?
Oh yeah.
Sir.
Those rays are coming in nice. So Nate said, I was thinking about this duo this morning. I missed yesterday. Have you all heard of K Wholesale? They have the Excel sheet, but they do require some business docs. Probably sketchy, just checking our opinion. So I haven't heard of that particular supplier. I mean, there's tens of thousands of suppliers out there. As far as if they require business documents, I mean, usually that's a good sign, but it depends on what it is they're requiring, right? So if you're unsure, call them up on the phone, feel them out that way. It's going to be a lot harder to like really lie and mislead you over the phone as opposed to over email.
Yeah, way harder. Corey Cross on Reese's channel. Yes, sir.
That was fun. Yeah. That was like probably one of my favorite lives that I've done yet, because Reezy is so, I guess, new to wholesale that when he was asking me all those questions, it really, I guess, helped reaffirm like what it is that I know, right? By just explaining it to him, almost like he's a new seller, which he's not, but he is new to wholesale. So it was cool.
So do you have LinkedIn Sales Navigator?
I don't have Sales Navigator. No, I don't pay for LinkedIn at all. So I just have a completely free LinkedIn account.
Yeah, bro. I was meaning to ask that actually. Do you mind describing the LinkedIn method for outreach? Because that I've pretty much only heard you talk about that, and it's like it seems like a really, really good way to do things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy underrated method. So think about it this way, right? Suppliers are getting hit up all day, every day on the phone, especially over email, but very few suppliers are getting reached out by Amazon sellers on LinkedIn, right? So what I like to do is if I'm reaching out to a brand owner or even a distributor on LinkedIn, I just like to be really specific and really brief. So when you send a connection request to somebody, you can attach a note to that connection request. So I just send a connection request and then include a note that says, "Hey, I'm Corey. I have a retail business in Charlotte. I'm looking to buy this specific product, or I'm looking to buy X number of units of this specific product. Can you help?" Right? That's all I say is, "Can you help?" And I mean, probably 30 to 50% of the time they'll accept that request and they'll respond. So it's much higher response rate than over email for sure.
Sure. Okay. Because dudes are like, is it the kind of thing that it pops? They're probably not getting a ton of LinkedIn messages and such.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they're especially, and even if they are getting a lot of LinkedIn messages, like maybe because they're active on LinkedIn, they're definitely not getting very many LinkedIn messages from like potential customers, right? It's more so like kind of spammy like connection requests.
Yeah. And the cool thing too here is like, let's check this out. So an email, if you had an email from someone, you have no idea about that person. You
Right.
can learn a lot about someone by taking a look at their Twitter or their LinkedIn, et cetera, right? So if we want to talk about on the OA side of things, like one of the best ways to grow your OA business is meeting other sellers and networking. When you DM someone, the first thing they do is look at your profile. And most people, it's anonymous. There's nothing about Amazon. They got no videos out there. So you have no idea how serious this person is, right? But if you come to Courier's profile, you can see we're very serious. We're documenting what we're doing. We're learning. We're trying to help people and such, right? So in Corey's case, right, he's hitting up these suppliers on LinkedIn. They check his profile, and I assume it says like, e-commerce seller looking to buy brand product.
Exactly.
Yeah. Got you. Okay. Do you mind describing the trade show method as well? Because that's another good wholesale out a lot of people should be looking into as well.
Yeah. So guys, there's a way to make money off of trade shows and you don't even have to go to the show. So pretty much every trade show out there is going to have a list of their exhibitors somewhere on the trade show's website. And so you pretty much just pull up that list and start looking up each company one by one. Just take a look at their website, see if they look like a legit supplier. If it's a brand, see if their products are already selling well on Amazon, right? And a lot of trade shows are going to have hundreds of exhibitors. So even if 10 to 20 to 30% of those exhibitors are going to be a legit supplier, that's tens of, if not hundreds of potential supplier leads that you can get from any particular trade show list. So that's a great method.
And then how do you find trade shows near you?
So, I mean, again, it sounds like a cop-out answer, but it truly is the best way. Just Google, right? And again, try to be a little more specific when you're searching for trade shows. Don't say like grocery trade show or electronics trade show. Choose more of like a subcategory. So for example, like instead of saying like sports and outdoors trade show, you could say, show me a hunting trade show, right? And I know there's a big hunting trade show coming up in Vegas this week. It's called SHOTS. It stands for shooting, hunting, outdoor, tactical, and then I don't know what the S stands for, but that trade show is happening this week in Vegas. Google it, look at the exhibitor list, tons of big brands that are selling well on Amazon, tons of distributors in that niche. That's a really good strategy.
Okay, this is a good one. How many decision makers at a certain distributor would you reach out to on LinkedIn? Maybe ignored if they see I'm sending the same message to 5 to 10 managers who are in close contact with one another. I promise you, money-hungry sales reps are not going to go with that attitude in terms of
totally.
So you're really interested. But I like the question regardless. What are your thoughts, Corey?
Yeah, I used to think the same thing, right? I used to think like, oh, if I message 5 people from the same company and they all have the same title, like they're probably talking constantly, right? And they're probably going to be like, why did this guy send us the same message? But in reality, they're not like, that's not a consideration, right? Everybody's busy. Everybody's doing their own thing. The point is you want to get in front of somebody who's going to respond to you, right? So I wouldn't worry about that. I'd hit them all up. And really, if their title has anything to do with sales or business development, like those are the people that are going to be making a commission off of you. So they're going to be more inclined to respond.
Is it required to get an LLC, resellers permit, and an EIN number before starting wholesale? So for wholesale, actually, yes, distributors are require that stuff. The cool thing is you could have that all done in the next hour. Will Kohl's work at Nike? Yes, all big websites. I said it before and I'll say it again. All big websites can be used for ungating forever. If you're ever confused about that, just watch my tour on my channel, but you'll be good. Okay, how high up the ladder should you contact?
Good question.
strategy for regional sales managers, or what title? That's a fantastic question.
So it depends on how big the supplier is, right? If it's just a brand, and if it's like kind of like a smaller brand, then I hit up the owner or the CEO or the COO. But if it's a distributor and you could tell they're like a big national distributor, then yeah, like sales manager, regional sales manager, national sales manager. Because the thing is if the person you contact can't help you, but they do respond, they're just going to put you in touch with whoever can help you, right? So it can't hurt.
Sure. And so for the people who are doing arbitrage, RA and OA, what is that transition like in terms of wholesale? Like, is it a 6-month process, a year-long process? Should they do OA and wholesale forever? Like, how do you think about that? Because that's the main, I think, people that are going to be able to get value in this stuff is people who are already getting sales,
Yeah. So, I mean, guys, if you're doing arbitrage already, whether it's retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, you're kind of in the perfect position to add a wholesale component to your business. So all you do, and like you could be selling wholesale within a week, because all you do is you look at the brands you're currently carrying in your arbitrage business and you start calling up those brands. And if they're really big brands, then you ask them to put you in touch with a distributor of theirs in your area. So that way you can just hit up those distributors and now start buying those brands at wholesale, right? And then that's pretty much the easiest thing that you can do if you're brand new to wholesale, if you're already doing arbitrage, to quickly add wholesale into your business. And Nate said, do you give up if they only want to work with brick and mortar? So Nate, that is a super common objection that you're going to see. Some brands, some distributors, for whatever reason, they won't sell to just e-commerce sellers. You have to have a brick and mortar storefront for them to do business with you. And so because of that, a lot, like I said, that's sometimes very difficult to get around, and you just move on to the next supplier. There's plenty of suppliers that won't require brick and mortar. Daniel said, what sort of products do you wholesale? So anything. I mean, right? It depends on kind of what it is that you know. I typically recommend people start selling a product or a category that they know. But in general, like anything that you can sell on Amazon, you can buy at wholesale for the most part.
Boom. What reason have you heard for them to not sell to e-commerce sellers?
So, I mean, think about it, right? One of the reasons that some of these suppliers require you have a brick and mortar storefront is because of the barrier to entry to have a brick and mortar storefront. Like if you have a brick and mortar store, you're probably a serious, legit business, right? Whereas anybody can be an e-commerce seller, right? And as we know, there's a lot of bad actors out there. So some companies just don't want to work with strictly e-commerce sellers because of the perception.
Sure. And then, so just for people who might not be familiar, what are the benefits? Like, why is wholesale, or in what cases and in what ways is wholesale better than OA and RA?
So OA and RA are just very transactional, right? And again, this is not a knock on those models. They're fantastic. But when you think about it with online arbitrage, for example, you're always looking for the next deal. And you don't have a way of like creating a relationship with the websites that you're buying off of. Whereas with wholesale, it's all about relationships, right? You're trying to build a relationship with your sales rep, with the supplier that you're buying from. And the better your relationship, the better deals you're going to have, the better credit options you're going to have, the more opportunity for just spending more money with those suppliers long-term, right? So it's just more of a relationship-based business.
How do you look for local trade shows? Yeah, the cool part is just start on Google, right? Like literally, like you could find someone's probably in your region in the next 15 seconds just on Google. Right there.
And ChatGPT too. So I don't have the prompt handy, but there is a prompt that I've used before where I don't remember when I asked it, but it gave me some pretty good trade shows both in my area and just around the country.
Boom. What are some good ways to get more buy box share? Brandon, do you mean as an FBA or FBM seller? Because there's different ways depending. If you're selling FBM, it's moving to 0-day handling time and using repricer. If you're selling FBA, it might be that your inventory is just back ordered, right? And it's just not checked in yet, which is waiting, as well as it's definitely going to be using a repricer too. What exactly is the project mentioned at the end of the wholesale challenge?
So that is our 21-day action plan. So that's essentially you go through the challenge, right, which is going to teach you wholesale A to Z. And then we give you an action plan that you can use to execute what you learn over the next 21 days, right? So the idea is you learn the content, you execute on the action plan, and then that'll set you up for a very successful wholesale business.
Boom. Okay. Do you mind breaking down some of the successes from the first wholesale challenge? Because you haven't done this for like 7 months or something, right?
Right. So this is only the second time that we're doing this. So the first time around, I think one of the things that people really enjoyed is I think it was on day 3 where we talked about contacting suppliers. I went over to real life cold calls that I made to suppliers. And I play the cold call, but I pause every like couple of minutes or so to kind of give myself feedback and critique the call. So it's a really good way to learn like how to approach these suppliers, what to say. Like I talk about what I did well, what I could have improved on. And I think people got a lot of value out of seeing those real life supplier conversations. So that's one of the many things that we got great feedback on first time around.
And how much is it?
So the price is $649, and that gets you the whole challenge, lifetime access to the replays, and lifetime access to the community that we built with inside Facebook. But there's a additional $100 off discount that you can get if you use Miles code.
Yeah, so the links, the affiliate links down below if anyone is interested in that. Corey's my guy. I remember he came on my podcast for the first time. I was like, all right, like, better get on Twitter. Need
yep.
him to do that and such. What are some of the downsides of wholesale compared to OA and RA2? Because I think that's an interesting thing that people should be aware of too. Like, what are some of the ways where wholesale might be inferior, at least especially for people in their first couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, by far the biggest downside is going to be the cash flow cycle, right? So for example, with OA, when you buy OA product, it ships to you within a day or two. You send it, or like your prep center sends it out a day or two later, and then it's selling, right? But with wholesale, a lot of times we're having to pay vendors up front, and then we might not be getting the product for a week, sometimes 2 weeks or more, depending on the payment terms. Then we got to get it to Amazon. Then we've got to sell through it. Then we got to wait to get paid, right? So just managing cash flow is much harder in a wholesale business.
Yeah, and even with RA too, like RA is so good when you're new. You can get the product listed FBM same day. You might be able to sell
it before you leave the store sometimes.
And then you learn so much quicker, right? When meanwhile with wholesale, you might not have an order for a month from when you place it. Now that's under your control to not buy on those terms and such. Yeah. So how do you think about using leverage with wholesale? Zachary asks.
So, I mean, we use credit cards to buy all of our inventory, right? But at the same time, we pay the full statement balance every month. So we're never paying any interest on those cards. Another thing that we're doing as far as leverage is concerned is we've got a line of credit with our bank that we use also that we'll pull from to pay for inventory, right? I try to be as conservative as possible and really try not to use that much debt from the line of credit in particular, but it's kind of there if we need it and can help us capitalize on some good opportunities.
Boom. There we go. Pros and cons of FBM versus FBA, please. Plus, what are the different margins? So purely based on margin, it's pretty similar in terms of the cost because FBA fees are based on size and weight. FBM shipping cost is based on size and weight, right? So FBA is definitely better. However, there are certain cases where you can see a lot of FBM people on a listing, which means you can probably FBM that item pretty quick. Or if your products have recently been checking in really quick to the FBA warehouses, you can clean up and send them in quick FBA and price way above them, right? So FBM, you can sell products quicker if those items are FBM friendly. If a product's above like $30, but well below 1 pound, like just a couple ounces, it's going to be a little bit more efficient to FBM rather than FBA from a cost perspective. And then FBA in general, items sell if it's a listing that isn't being dominated by FBM, which is not all of them, like they're going to sell a lot quicker. And then FBA is more scalable because you're shipping products in bulk. You don't have to fulfill each individual order. So the vast majority of the products you sell on Amazon during your career are probably going to be FBA. However, if you see a listing being FBM friendly, aka a bunch of people are on it, like why not toss it up and print cash on it if the opportunity presents itself? But FBA is definitely better long term. Business credit cards, business credit cards for sure. Is they usually bad seller feedback? Yeah, that's a good point too. It's not like a huge component, but that is a very good point as well. And so another thing people are going to be worried about is like brick and mortar locations, prep centers, warehouse, and such. So how does your personal business work? And then how do you think about the prep center versus warehouse conversation for wholesale sellers?
Yeah, so I've actually been on both sides. So we actually bought a warehouse back in early 2021. We operated it for probably 6 or 7 months and then ended up selling it and outsourced everything to a prep center. So I personally don't want to touch inventory. I don't want to see inventory. So I go 100% prep centers, and that's the method that I teach in the wholesale challenge. But at the same time, like I said, I had a warehouse. There's plenty of people that are successful with the warehouse. It really just depends on your personal goals and like how much you want to be involved in the business, right? But there's not a right or wrong answer.
Yeah. And then how about delegating to VAs? Because you're a rock star. You write a lot of good Twitter stuff on that. So how do you think about virtual assistants and how do you personally utilize them?
So I love virtual assistants, right? I like to say they pretty much
what are they too? Yeah, for people who might not be familiar as well.
So I've got two right now. The two that run the Amazon business are located in the Philippines. And then I've got one who is more of like my executive assistant. She's in Nigeria, right? And I pay them anywhere from $6 an hour is the lowest paid one. And the highest paid one is $11 per hour. So that's a really good rate for them over there. And obviously it's a pretty cheap rate for us here in the States. So they can do just about anything that you need them to do within your business. Just make sure you have good processes in place, train them properly. They can handle a ton of the legwork in an Amazon business. And that's another thing too that we cover during the Wholesale Challenge. I think it's day 6. We spend the entire day talking about how to leverage virtual talent to scale your wholesale business. So we go super deep in depth on that.
So I am GPT said, how do I sign up for the Wholesale Challenge? Yeah, man. So check the link in the description and in the chat if you're interested in that. And then make sure to use that Flips100 coupon code if you want to save some money too. Is the Wholesale Challenge about FBM or FBA? How much will it cover FBA or prep centers to work with, finding manufacturers? So the cool part is bro basically asked, does the Wholesale Challenge do anything? Yes, it does all of that stuff. It's right. Primarily going to be about FBA, but it's like they're not in, like they're fairly interchangeable, but yeah, you can keep going with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as like FBA versus FBM, like what you're going to learn applies regardless of the fulfillment method that you choose to use, right? So you'll learn tactics that apply to both. As far as prep centers to work with, yeah. So one of the, I believe it's Tuesday next week, we're actually doing a 90-minute long interview with the CEO of my prep center. So we're going to be able to ask him any questions that we want related to prep centers, and we are going to cover that on day 5, shipping and logistics. And working with manufacturers, yep, we're going to cover that on day 2, I guess, finding suppliers. So we'll go into multiple methods for exactly how to find both manufacturers or brands, which same term, and distributors.
Yep. When you're doing wholesale, do you treat we order from suppliers and straight to Amazon without us touching the products?
Yep, and that's actually one of my probably one of my favorite methods for how we operate now, right? So really 80% of the purchase orders that we're placing, our suppliers are just sending it straight to Amazon for us. So we do cover that on day 5, shipping and logistics. And yeah, that's something that it kind of comes with time, right? You want to build that relationship with your supplier first, but then once you ask them to ship your stuff to Amazon for you, it can make it a lot easier and a lot less touch points on your end.
Hasn't sent me. It's been a month now. Call Manana. Is wholesale brand direct or distributor harder? So Fern, if you're worried about stuff being hard, don't get into business. Right? Like if you're worried, business is not for you if you're worried about it being hard. But what are your thoughts, Corey?
So it really depends on what you're offering, right? Because with brands, they typically care about what you're going to do to help them grow sales. So you almost have to take more of like a marketing approach when you're going to be trying to reach out to brands, which is a little harder if you're a newer seller. So typically I recommend, especially newer sellers, focus on working with distributors, because distributors really just care about like, are you going to place an order or not, right? So it's much easier to kind of get into some of these distributors.
Is your course, the 21-day challenge, considered a tax write-off for our business? So we're not CPAs, but in general, business education is deductible. How do you do taxes with virtual assistants? Talk to a CPA on that, but contractor expenses typically are deductible. Why do suppliers go with middlemen if they can just ship it directly to Amazon? Because they don't want to, Ian. Like in many, many cases, it's a drag. It's a completely different process than their typical delivery systems are. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, you'll be able to do that, but it's not always possible.
Well, also too, Amazon it's like a specialized skill set, right? Like just because you know how to create good products and just because you know how to sell them on your own website or even to other retail stores doesn't mean that you're going to be successful on Amazon. So a lot of brands don't have the time or the bandwidth to worry about or learning it. So that's why they have people like us.
Yep. You ever thought about getting a private label? If no, why? Private label is dope. It's just like a bandwidth thing, like not wanting to switch up skill sets pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, same here. Exactly. So it's interesting. I know people that are crushing it with private label, but I just try to stay focused on what I've had momentum with.
After working with over 4,000 business.
Fucking goat. I didn't mean to open that though.
Who was that?
This is just this good this dude named Rob. You haven't watched it for a couple of years. Do you recommend opening a checking account when you first start out on Amazon? So Michael, if you're even worried about bank accounts, man, we gotta sell some products, right? Like we gotta sell some products first. Now, it's not a bad idea to be organized from day one, but if you're watching this stream on a Saturday night, you're clearly pretty committed to this stuff and everything. You just gotta start taking action.
But yeah, eventually you're gonna want to have a business checking account, right?
For sure, Ski. And then, so what are some of the myths about wholesale? Like, what are people getting wrong often in terms of the people you're seeing and such?
So a lot of people think that you need that these wholesale suppliers are going to have a huge MOQ, right, which stands for minimum order quantity. And in reality, I mean, most suppliers don't really have a minimum, or if they do, it's pretty low. It might be a couple $100 or $500. So you can start with smaller orders than you probably expect. Another, I guess, big myth around wholesale is that, you know, it's going to take all these calls, all these reps to find your first profitable supplier. When in reality, guys, if you take the advice that I give you and just choose a category and ideally a subcategory, choose a niche and focus on that niche. I mean, I guarantee you, if you call 30 to 50 brands and or distributors within a specific niche and they're all in that same category, then you'll find a profitable supplier.
Is it possible to make enough money from FBA for me to retire? I mean, for sure, man. But like, you gotta start. Like, if you haven't even started yet, you probably have no idea how much money you can make, and you just got to get started, man. Like, if you're, how do you manage risk for wholesale items, and how much can you start with your first order?
So as far as managing risk, it's just about going wide before you go deep, right? So instead of buying a lot of 1 or 2 different products, buy a little of 7 or 8 different products, right? So spread that risk out. The other question was, how can they start with their first order? So like I was saying earlier, you're going to need to find a supplier before you can buy anything. So use Google to find distributors. Just search category name, distributor, your town. Find distributors that way. Call them up. Know the products that you want to buy. Get quotes on those products, and then do that a few times until you find profitable quotes.
Did you see this? This is a really good question. You see this budget? You answer that?
So what budget size do you recommend for a beginner? So really, you're going to need 5 to 10K in cash for inventory, right? As far as like the fees, so again, don't worry about the fees until you've actually sold something. That's obviously going to get factored in to your profit. So 5 to 10K cash to start with wholesale.
Boom, makes sense. What software to use to avoid IP complaints, cease and desist? Yeah, so it's just Keepa is going to be the big one. Keepa and Seller App in terms of just avoiding listings where you can see the offer count randomly shooting down the competition. How do you have credit for your first distributor? Frank, man, we got to start cold calling, man, right? Like, but yeah, it's having the credentials and shit. But they want your money. Like, they want to sell you products.
So, well, Frank, the easiest way to have credibility is to know what you want, right? So that's what I was saying earlier, is to have an idea in mind of a couple of brands and ideally a couple of products that they carry that you'd want to buy. And then when you call them up, say, hey, I know these products. I know you carry these products. I'm ready to buy them. Can we have a conversation on price, right? And they're not going to hang up on you. They're going to do business with you every time.
Boom. Okay. Is there a risk of ceasing? Oh, for sure. If you're buying from distributors, 1,000%. Yeah. And can you talk about like any times you've gotten screwed with that, or like ways to avoid it and such?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it's impossible to avoid like getting a cease and desist order. Like, it's going to happen, especially if you've been doing wholesale long enough. The thing is once you get those letters, you know, I pretty much just like to jump off the listing for a little bit and then maybe wait a couple of months, then jump back on, or just choose not to sell that product at all anymore, right? Because at the end of the day, there's so many brands out there that are profitable that won't issue a cease and desist order. So it shouldn't be a huge concern.
Should you go in person to look at products, or just, bro, I love the idea of going in person. You ever gone in person with suppliers?
Yeah, definitely. And so, I mean, the best way to do that is to go to a trade show, right? So at trade shows, you're going to be face-to-face with tons of different suppliers. But also in general, I mean, when I lived in Chicago, one of our biggest brand direct accounts was in Chicago. I'd go in person to their factory, to their office all the time. That's the best way to build the best relationships quickest. It's just not as scalable, obviously.
Do you sell in Mexico and Canada, Corey? I don't.
Yeah, so through the NARF program, we do, right? And I don't even know if it's so called NARF, but we do make some sales there.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I like low-key don't think it is either. Got you. Cool. So we'll be on for a couple more minutes, guys. So any wholesale questions, make sure to fire away on. And then for anyone else who's like still kind of not sure, could you mind filling them in again on the whole system of the wholesale challenge?
Yeah. So guys, the wholesale challenge starts on Monday. In fact, the cart closes tomorrow night at midnight. So if you're going to join us, you've got to do it before then. It's just going to be 7 straight days of learning wholesale A to Z, how to start, scale, manage your wholesale business. Tons of guest interviews, tons of bonuses. Miles has a $100 off code. Oh, and I forgot to mention the 2 bonuses that I'm throwing in. So for anybody that's still on the fence, if you end up buying it and you end up sending me an email with a screenshot of your receipt, I'm going to send you 2 bonus trainings. The first one is me breaking down a real purchase order that we submitted, showing you guys how to analyze products. And then the second one is I think it's like a 40+ minute long breakdown where I essentially critique one of my cold call negotiations with a 7-figure brand. It's a real call that I had earlier this week. So send a screenshot of your receipt to Corey@CoreyGanim.com, and I'll send both of those trainings over for anybody that's still on the fence. And again, Miles has $100 off discount code link in the description.
Yeah. Okay, this is good too. Yeah. So if you're starting out from scratch, how do you think about product niches too? Because that's a big issue. Like I think a lot of people are worried about.
Yes. So my best advice there is to pick a category that you know and go with that, right? So if you're into cars, get into automotive. If you're into tools, get into tools. If you're into sports, there's so many different niches within sports and outdoors. So that is the direction that I would take that. So Michael said, when making a purchase order with your supplier, if you use a prep center, do you notify them before or after you place an order? So typically we place the order with our supplier, and then our prep center has a software where we can just kind of input what we bought so that the prep center knows what is coming to them.
Can you please throw that email address here? Yeah. Can you mind putting that in the chat or private messaging me too?
Yeah. So guys, I'm going to put it here in the chat. It's just Corey. It's my first name at CoreyGanim.com. I'm putting that in the chat right now. Romer said Mark Zuckerberg and the young Steve Jobs. What's up, Romer?
Okay, sweet. Okay, Corey@CoreyGanim.com. Bang, cool. Sweet, right? So 20 do I need to prep for dinner commercial location? Nope. Only if they're requiring it. Do you need it? And even then, like you can negotiate. No, we don't sell on Amazon in Canada. I wouldn't recommend it. Do you notify? Oh, of course you notify them, but they don't give a shit if you're.
Well, I just addressed that. So I just pretty much said like we place the order first, and then you tell the prep center what they're going to be receiving, essentially.
Boom, makes sense. Cool. How much of your sales are out of the U.S.? It's like 90. It's probably like 98%, right? 96%, something like that.
Oh, I thought he meant like is not in the U.S. So yeah, in the U.S. it's probably like 98%, probably 2% is Canada, Mexico.
For example, if any of you guys don't have a thriving Amazon social media presence, the last thing you need to worry about is Mexico and Canada. Like there's shit that'll make differences of orders of magnitude, and it's getting better at sourcing and making connections with this stuff. Like other things are, gonna matter way less. Like all of you guys, if you posted a video on Twitter and documented for the next 6 months, you'd make so much exponentially more money with so much less time than if compared to like worrying about any of that little stuff.
Completely agree.
Among other great how much written documentation and data provide, looking for examples of financials for products and sellers, among other great documentation to reference after the product. So Kuma, man, there's a money back guarantee. So I'd encourage you to get your money back if you don't like it and shit, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some like stuff like that. And the cool thing is too, like in terms of like product analysis and stuff, just like watch my videos on Keep on Selling and you'll get a pretty good idea of that too. And,
yeah, some of the best Keep It tutorials out there Miles has.
Sure. When transition to wholesale, how do you build relationships with suppliers? You buy stuff, man. Money talks. Money talks, right? And
that's the best way.
Yeah, right, for sure. Money talks and everything. But in general, there's also too, it's like, okay, you be a decent human being, you keep them up to date, you do what you say you're gonna do, right? And the same way about making friends with anyone, right? Or any sort of business relationship.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, sweet guys. So we're gonna hop off now. We hope you have a great rest of your Sunday night. What time does the card close for tomorrow?
So midnight tomorrow night. At that point, we won't be accepting anybody else into the challenge. So guys, if you're on the fence, you have about 17 hours ish.
Oh, whoa, hold on.
No. Yeah, 20. I don't know. Basically tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Don't maybe do math on stream.
Yeah, and then if you guys want to save $100, you want to use the link in the description and the coupon code in the description too. Most competitive, least margin wholesale category. Not cold emailing and never following up and not personalizing it. You're not even you're not even gonna be able to find products. Like it's all about the buy cost. You can see shit sells like crazy on Amazon regardless of the type of product. It's all about you being able to find good buy costs. And such. There's really like everything's competitive if you're bad. Right. So like I'd assume probably the most stuff people are looking up is like grocery and B, but that's also because it's the best. There's the most volume because those are where people repeat purchase and such and everything. Right. And all that. Looking forward to it. Cool. Sweet. All right. Cool. Everyone have a great night. We'll talk to you guys soon. I think we're going to be on at noon tomorrow. Love you guys.
Yep.
Great night.
Tomorrow.
If you want to get started from square one, go on YouTube and search Flips4Miles free course and then take a look at that. And that'll get you up to speed pretty quick here on stuff. Have a great night, everyone.
See you guys.